many sights to see when I look in my window. So many different people to be, that it's strange, so strange. You got to pick up every stitch. You got to pick up every stitch. You got to pick up every stitch. Must be the season of the witch. Must be the season of the witch. Oh, must be the season of the witch.
Oh, we are the Caballeros, the four. We are four. The four Caballeros, together we're birds of a feather. We're always amigos. Come on.
Lyrics. Yeah.
The four Caballeros. Hello everyone, welcome to the Team Yume podcast. I am your host, Madhog Thy Master, the first Caballero as it were, and I am joined by the usual condiment to my salad, Y-Boy.
It's me. I'm like ketchup. I go with everything.
Except with French.
Yeah.
And joining us tonight, we have Nero of Nero Reviews.
Yeah. The second half of Toongren
Could we please use the actual marketing description of the better half?
The other side of the grin, so to speak.
Yeah, you got the better half. Yeah.
See, this is what happens when I don't discipline my subordinates. They,
hit you the banana.
Oh! Yeah. Stop beating me with your large banana. It's questionable in nature.
We at the Team Yume podcast love to have fun with friends, but remember, kids, it's not okay to smoke marijuana unless they decide it is.
Wait, it's legalized back home for me, so I mean, it's totally okay to smoke marijuana.
Like I said, it's totally okay to smoke marijuana if you're in Canada. It should be okay everywhere, but regardless. We have a packed up show tonight, in spite of some incredibly troubling issues we faced in the attempt to even start this podcast. The less I say about that, the better.
We didn't even introduce the other host, yeah.
We have one more host.
Right, so Devar Arkvaron is also here with his usual disembodied voice.
Greetings, one and all. I am the great mighty wizard who comes to drop everything on you.
I always knew God was going to be
I must exercise it with music! Or not. Alright,
The great wizard Shazam.
yes. So I know you guys have been busy in the last week or so. Do you want to tell us about your recent activities?
We've mostly just been sort of like, I guess sort of like a rebranding of everything Toongren, like making up a new logo and such, working on our past shows. We're trying to figure out a new production schedule for Cartoon Corner Mirror reviews and such. As right now, everything's just been sort of sparse and such.
Yeah, we want to try and make a very regular setup where, you know, episodes come at a specific time and work sort of a seasonal kind of way, kind of like a television show where a television show will have a season and then they might have like a mid-season break and then they'll come back in like a couple of weeks, then they'll have more content. We think if we do something like that, we'd be able to run the channel more fluently, we'd be able to have more content coming up regularly, because we've been doing the watching stuff, which is one of our primary shows where we'll watch virtually any kind of movie and then we'll have a discussion about it afterwards.
Or trailers of movies.
Yeah.
Or trailers, or video game trailers, especially because San Diego Comic-Con just passed this weekend. So I'm sure a lot of us were busy with a lot of the amazing trailers that came out of that. and we just sort of want to get on the track to start producing content more regularly. And we know that at the end of this week, we're planning to go to Con Bravo.
Yeah.
So that should be actually very exciting to be able to meet anybody who actually watches the show, to be able to come up and see us. We're going to be in cosplay there the first day. We're going to see if anybody could actually spot us on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. We just spent the time just looking for the costumes and all that, so we're good on there. Like, we were just thinking, like, with the watching stuff, we were just feeling like, I guess in a way, creatively zapped in a sense.
Well, because we do it virtually every week, and the watching stuff's fun and all, but it's not as analytical or introspective as other content we've done. White Boy recently actually just did Is Animation Just for Kids, which was a brilliant essay, in my opinion, that you did. And it really helped you feel that creative spark again after so long.
Yeah, so that's sort of around the time where we stopped in watching stuff, and now we're just moving forward to do other things.
Interesting. Can I see the banana again?
Nah.
I am the king.
Which peel's the queen, then?
There is no queen. It is a perfect world.
What about this one?
And
You're not the queen, I'm part of the king!
oh my god, everything I knew was a lie.
And I'm your son!
That's the disappointment.
Oh, gosh.
I'm having some regrets.
You asked for it!
I know, and now I'm having regrets. That's the whole point of having regrets, because you make a choice and then you regret it. That's how having regrets work.
I am all three of your consciences, and I am acting as your consciences. I'm telling you, you all are silly.
No, don't mind those people. They are silly people. Anyway. As for me, I have been playing quite a lot of Octopath Traveler. You might have heard of this latest Square Enix venture. This JRPG with a very interesting gimmick, which turned out to be just that, a gimmick. So if you would allow me to talk about it a little bit, a few cliff notes, if you will.
Just as long as it's not 30 odd minutes like I went.
You will have your chance to redeem yourself for the Dissidia Snafu later on, Davar.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm looking here, because you're not anywhere, so... okay. Octopath Traveler has this unique gimmick in that you can choose your protagonist out of 8 available characters. You still have to find all the other characters and have them join your party as you go, but you can choose which one of these can be the real protagonist. Which really, all that entails is that the protagonist cannot be removed from your active party because JRPG logic. To my great discomfort and frustration, I found out that this gimmick actually really detracts a lot of elements that we would otherwise give for granted when it comes to JRPG, even classic Final Fantasy games for that matter. There is no organic storytelling, there is no overarching theming or interconnectivity between characters. What I mean by that is this. I started off the game with Primrose, the belly dancer, out for bloody revenge for the people who murdered her father. It's interesting, it's basically Showgirls meets Kill Bill. In that regard. The first chapter of her own unique tale ends up with her killing off her own pimp, but then she goes on to meet the second character that I have chosen to meet, which is Alfin the Apothecary, and when we are told his story, Primrose simply ceases to exist. And by that I mean she's still there for the gameplay sections, but she's completely absent from cutscenes. It's as if she's completely irrelevant for the story, because we're telling another character's story, and there is no interconnectivity or organic storytelling between these characters, and every other character I find is exactly like that. Essentially, every time I pick up a new party member, we are told his or her story, and every other character I might have in the party is completely in existence.
I'm the new character who's come to hijack your show.
Oh, no, you will have to wait, because right now we are hearing chapter 1 of the Toon Green story, which means everyone else doesn't matter at all. And that is absolutely preposterous. Even the oldest JRPGs, even the oldest Final Fantasies, which I don't particularly enjoy to begin with, they have an organic way to build the story, or, you know, to give characters a damn reason to become party members in the first place. There is no such fundamental reason in this game, because there is no real interaction between these characters. Their own individual stories progress in a linear fashion. They do not connect to an overarching narrative or intertwine with any of the other character stories. That feels like I am playing less of a JRPG, or an half-finished JRPG in that sense. And it's incredibly frustrating and infuriating because of that. And I am addicted to it. I guess I am assimilating some form of enjoyment from this experience.
Yes, Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes, it's me with Persona 5 all over again. I hated that game, every facet of it, but I still ended up playing it to completion. Actually, I think I like Octopath Traveler much better than Persona 5. At least I am not taken hostage by what the game wants me to do, by a damn talking cat telling me when to go to sleep. I cannot do anything of my volition. I cannot have fun. Fun is not allowed.
Fun is the mind killer.
Right then. Devar, do you have anything that you want to talk about?
Things have not been going that great for me in the tech department as of late.
Let's hear all about it!
Oh gosh. Well, I basically end up losing my video recorder I use for Let's Plays, which then made me reevaluate everything that I'm doing. I'm hopefully going to change that in some way. Though I haven't found a new video recorder yet, I'm at least upgrading my video editing software to hopefully be reliable. So, well, I'm hoping it will become reliable once I test out this new software I just installed just this evening before getting on here. So hopefully things will look up in that regard. But right now I'm kind of in the state where I'm thinking about giving up certain aspects of video working and basically putting my time into something else.
Such as?
Makes sense.
Right.
Such as those projects I kind of keep secret, but you know, actually work on them, you know, actually make a start. But I would have to script things again like I used to do, but for the life of me, don't know where to start with that. So hopefully I can think of something to...
As a professional procrastinator myself, and occasionally a writer, the best suggestion I can give you is to just start. Write down whatever it is that floats your boat, and then the structure comes, and then the inspiration comes. The important thing is to start at some point. I know that is the biggest obstacle with me. I honestly put a lot more effort in writing my tweets these days than writing any script. And I actually am very proud of my Twitter profile, mind you.
When it comes to writing, for me, because I'm an amateur writer of novels essentially, so I always have more trouble with character dialogues than I do with actual descriptions or...
How do those pesky humans talk? How do humans work? Invader Zim.
So yeah, that's kind of something that I don't really have a problem with starting, essentially, just more like thinking of how the form of it will be, video medium and all.
Right, I think we can all relate to that, right guys?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Relate stronger!
Relate. Ooh.
I think that's too much relating.
Too much relating.
Bring forth the banana.
No.
Or not.
The banana blacked out your camera.
I have come from parts unknown.
No, just
To
like
tell you
Kane.
great secrets.
Ah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just like Kane. And then I'll be ruined multiple times, and then I'll put my peel back on and off, and hopefully no one will realize how ridiculous it is.
Hashtag relatable.
yeah.
Alright, so before we jump headfirst into the chosen main topic of this podcast, I would like to take about 5 minutes of your time, if I may, to talk
Yeah.
about a comic that I have promised myself I would talk about for a very long time.
What
This
is it?
one.
Pinky and Pepper Forever. I think I saw you
So-
talking about this on Twitter.
Yes, white boy,
Yeah.
I believe you should be familiar with this face.
Yeah. Oh, God.
White boy looks frightened.
Look at this beautiful professional font that they are using for it. After Pinky's lethal performance art piece, her devoted girlfriend, Pepper, follows her into death, only to find that, in hell, Pinky is thriving? This seems like a bad meme, actually. Pinky is thriving? Pinky and Pepper Forever is a dark comedy full of furry feelings and a little gay Catholic guilt. So, you know, it's the best content. Follow these two puppy girls' relationship and artwork on Earth and their new life along the river Styx. Oh wait, there is a small critique here. A quotation. Pinky and Pepper Forever is full of sincere, beautiful art that practically writes off the page. Ivy Adams, the author of this comic, is a genius. This book made me cry. By Carta Monier for the Comics Journal. Okay, so Pinky and Pepper Forever.
Sounds kind of interesting. Like, if that was an Adult Swim show,
You know, good point. If this were an Adult Swim show, it would probably look a lot like Ball Masters 9000, which I wouldn't be opposed, to be honest.
you think of all the stuff we see on like Adult Swim, and if you were to actually describe it to somebody, like, how would you pitch, like, Rick and Morty? Oh, it's basically if Back to the Future was, like, really, really raunchy.
No, you don't even need to do that. All you need is Justin Roiland showing up drunk, and here's your show.
It's not wrong.
Yeah.
Like, how would you describe something like, say, Venture Brothers to, like, a common person? Like, you know, it's, oh, Venture Brothers, it's a slice of life, it's a little bit Marvel, it's a little bit DC, it's got a little bit of the spy genre. It's kind of like if you took the Hardy Boys and, like, Johnny Quest, and then there's, like, a guy in a butterfly costume. Am I underselling this? No, I'd watch that.
Yeah.
I believe the most amusing way to describe Pinky and Pepper Forever is as thus. What if Dante's Inferno was a lesbian furry punk rock art school graduate romance? With
That sounds like fun, though.
S&M in it.
That sounds like fun. Like, yeah, it's a bit more adult than even what I'm normally used to, but I'd still be fascinated by, you know, the description alone. Like, it's like if you think about, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, by all logic and reasoning, there's no way they should be able to make, like, 10 years worth of films all connect. They pulled it off. It's not impossible to pull off a ridiculous idea. It's just getting it to work. Oh, come on. If I came to you, hey, man, I want to take one half Final Fantasy and one half the Disney roster, and I want to throw that crap together in a blender. Oh, and here's a giant key. Part of you would be like, that sounds stupid. And then you play Kingdom Hearts. And it's still stupid, but it's like, this is a fun game.
The first one. The first one.
Yeah.
The first two, I say.
No,
Yeah.
the first one, because the first two aren't really the first two. The second one is actually the third one.
Yes,
I don't care.
know.
I don't
Yeah.
care. So, funny you should say that, Nero, because this, against all odds, actually does work. It is imbued in that as they say here, sincerity of intent that translates into the execution. And make no mistake, this is really not that complex, because if you go past all the allegories and all the theming, which really is bare bones as it is, and mostly spelled out, if you go past all the weirdness, all the artistic mind boggles that this comic goes through, and it is quite a journey in that sense, this is really a very simple, straightforward story about two girls figuring out what the relationship is, which is incredibly grounded compared to how, in contrast, not grounded this entire artistic journey is. Because it starts off with the two of them experiencing that first young love in which they don't care about anyone else and they are completely dedicated to each other, almost to a worryingly toxic degree. But then, as they go to the adult world, which is allegorized by hell itself, hell in that sense is a pretty good metaphor for the harshness of the adult world, filled with Catholic guilt, as it were, the aforementioned Catholic guilt. You know, in spite of all the trippy, psychedelic journeys that these characters go through, the story is really that simple, and for that reason, it is also focused. It is not exactly something that's driven by a proper, solid, structurally compounded narrative. It is driven by the emotions, and the emotions are represented by the art itself. This comic is very much driven by its art, which is a good thing because the art is really good. Not in the traditional, approved by the academia sort of good art. This is the kind of endeavor that goes out of its way to look like the antithesis of what usually would be considered good art. It mixes up what I can only describe a late 80s, early 90s indie punk rock aesthetic with childlike scribbles and pastel-colored environments and characters. The end result, as I said, is a lot more interesting than it would have any right to be otherwise. Now, it has problems, of course. This is a very amateur author, I should say, so it has problems. I mentioned before that the theming is relatively weak, mostly because every inclusion of the aforementioned Catholic guilt, or even the idea of art being used as a form of escapism from the harshness of life, which ironically ends up pulling you into a harsher reality, which is hell, and the love between these two characters becoming essentially what keeps them going as they mature into the relationship, which is good and everything, but like I said, most of the themes feel like they are there because they have to, they are forced, and they are spelled out. Most egregiously, the story has the weird idea of starting itself from the middle, and then it goes back and it chronologically tells itself from the start to the end, which doesn't really seem like a good decision. The only time in which you should start a story from the middle is in the case in which you would go back and forth between past and present, but as it is, there is no reason for this story to start from the middle. In fact, it really spoils the reveal of hell itself.
You know, you described this sounds so weird, but when you start to read it, it kind of comes together. On Netflix, there's the Gretzko, which is such a weird premise. So you're in an office building, and you're in Japan, and all the characters are animals. So there are no humans, and everybody is like a cute animal, and it's all done in the art style of Hello Kitty, because it's the same company who made Hello Kitty. Despite its look of looking super cutesy, and despite the adorable, ridiculous concept of your main character is a young red panda named Gretzko who works as a salary woman at a big corporation. The whole show's main thematic is actually the toxicity of the job. Like,
Work
what does a job
culture.
take away from you? Yeah, and
Exactly.
it's weird, and it's weird because you think about it, and it's like, oh, it's made by the same people who made Hello Kitty. It's so cute, and it has these adorable little animals. You know, there are no humans, so they're all cutesy. And then all of a sudden, it's got these real big themes of, like, loneliness and desperation, what the job takes away from you and how much it crushes you on an emotional level, the toxicity of the work environment.
Sure.
By all account of logic and reason, you think about it and you're like, this shouldn't work. These themes seem so weird to be as a mix.
It makes perfect sense if you have any experience in analyzing media and art. It's the classic use of juxtaposition. When you juxtapose something, a very specific aesthetic, something that draws you in, something that is appealing at a fundamental level, like animal characters, cute animal characters. We all have grown up hearing stories of animals or watching cartoons which mostly had animals in them. So we are subconsciously attracted to those, whether we are furries or not. That's a completely different argument. But when you see aggressive Retsuko, we are drawn to it because, again, as you pointed out, we see cute animals. But that's when then the show pulls the trigger and uses our preconceived notions of what cute animals should be in the context of a series or a film or a story to basically inundate our brainwaves with a lot more serious issues that are relatable to us as human beings, adult human beings. They talk to us on a deeper level. This is why I like Zootopia also, because in spite of what I just said about contrast and whatnot, animals have always been used as a means to convey messages or morals or...
Oh yeah, it goes back to like Aesop's fables,
Exactly.
You know, when he was doing the old tales.
That speak to us about the human condition or human behavior in general. So it would make perfect sense that in a modern day time, we would use animals to talk about, say, the toxicity of work culture. And at the same time, we don't expect it to be as good or as relatable in that tragic sense, because we are fooled by the cuteness of the design. This is also one of the reasons why I think Made in Abyss worked so well with the delivery of its darker story elements. White Boy would remember me talking about Made in Abyss, and also the terrible issues that the show had in spite of the good bits.
See, like, I always love it when you hear a concept. Like, I remember Steven Universe when it first came out, and I was like, this looks dumb. This weird faux anime looking show, and it's about this kid hanging out with, like, rock aliens. Yeah, and then, like, that first season, you know, like, that first episode, you know, Steven's going around and he's like, Cookie Cat! And you're just like, uh-huh. This is kind of funny. I mean, it's a kid who, like, really enjoys an ice cream sandwich and they fight giant monsters. So it's kind of fun. And then you get to the end of that first episode of the season, and it's like, race war and caste system, and you're just like, what happened? We were talking about ice cream sandwiches at the start of the season, and now we're here.
I find the whole style versus the content very interesting, because it can be easily be seen, psychologically speaking, equal to what we see in life, sort of thing. Because
yeah, it's kind of deceptive, but in a
human brain is lazy.
Because what you see while looking all bright and all that, there are certain subtleties or nuances that are happening in real life that happens. And
in the times we live in, there is no more room for nuance, it would seem, which is tragic.
Well, that's like a perfect example of that, because you're mentioning like allegories and stuff in the story. That goes back to like the Man of Steel thing, where it's like, you know, there's like allegories, and it's like, it's supposed to be nuance. yeah, I get it.
Well, I would argue that the good allegories are not immediately obvious. They would make you think about them.
In like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's the charm about these characters is like, oh, they're all kind of terrible people, but they're terrible people who are getting their lives together. and they're like reinventing themselves to be better people. And we get to know them. We understand that Rocket was a subject of physical abuse. Gamora was a subject of parental abuse. Drax is a widower who, you know, lost his wife and daughter. And there's an emotional thing with that. Whereas like Man of Steel, it's like, imagine if you
I
were
am
like
Jesus.
There's no relatability because it's like, okay, well, Jesus is like the pinnacle of like humanity. You know, he loved everybody. He helped everyone. He was unjudgmental.
A bit
and
nonsense.
this Superman's like the polar opposite of that. Yeah.
When you
it's funny
look
because
at the story of Superman, you might notice that he's not exactly Jesus, he's Moses.
Yeah, it's totally Moses. The baby coming down in the ship is just like the baby going down the river.
I would argue the fact that Superman is less about the representation of the perfect human and more of what to do with power.
Oh, yeah. The whole takeaway should be is that he isn't who we are. It's what we can be. We can strive.
Yes, it
to
is
be better
something
people.
we should aspire to be. All Might is the new Superman.
But I would say this.
For example, All Might is the hero we should all aspire to be.
Because this is the thing as well. You say that, but there are certain moments in Superman's legacy where he questions what should he do, what shouldn't he do with
exactly.
He tried to develop the character.
Yes. So you know, so it's details like that that really builds on him and makes him, less like what everyone else thinks Superman is.
Less like Zack Snyder's product.
The argument that always kills me is where people are like, Superman's not relatable. He could just punch everything. Not like Batman. I can relate to Batman because he doesn't have powers. You know how many of Batman's villains are horribly like outclassed against him in a fight?
Batman literally punches everyone, though.
He punches the mentally ill in the face. That's how he solves the problem. Like,
you know,
he can literally fix the Mr. Freeze problem with, I'll cut you a check, Victor, and you can help figure out a way to take care of your wife. You can stop freezing people to death.
Sadly, this is where the human brain kind of basically says, "Ooh, guy with superpowers. He's much more better than this guy who has no powers. But because this guy has no powers, but is still doing a damn good job, just like the man with superpowers is, that means I'm going to look up to this guy because that's equal to me."
To say that Batman doesn't have superpowers is a lie. He is rich and he can afford everything.
He didn't have to earn a damn thing in his life.
Well, actually,
like,
you know, he learned to fight because he could afford to learn how to fight.
Okay, but like the common man will never ever be like Batman. The common man would be more like Rorschach, who was a psychopath and a homophobe.
It was supposed to be a satire on the lone vigilante like Batman, Rorschach. So it fits.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's according to Alan Moore, a character like Rorschach, which it's weird because Zack Snyder kind of, I guess in his brain meat, he thought Rorschach was the hero of Watchmen. And according to Alan Moore, the guy who wrote the thing, he's like, no, you're not supposed to like Rorschach. Rorschach's a scumbag. Rorschach's what Batman would be like if he really finally snapped after all these years of horrible.
So anyway, going back to Pinky and Pepper Forever and concluding my impromptu review. This is something that should not work. But it works because, as I said, there is a focus, a narrative focus that's conveyed not in a classic narrative logical sense, but in a more emotionally visceral sense through the art of the author herself. It's a trip and a treat for the eyes. I personally enjoy particularly this presentation, this specific aesthetics, because, as I said, it reminds me of indie punk rock. And I have a relative who was a indie punk rock and used to draw posters in a way that's not too dissimilar from this. So there is an added element of nostalgia that makes me personally allured to this comic. I bought this comic book for the aesthetics alone, and I stayed for the aesthetics. Mostly. So, yes.
It looked good, and I picked it up, and I was right. It looks good.
I would say that it is more style than substance, but one better way to put it is that the style is the substance. It's the most indie-rific comic I've read in a long time, and proudly so.
I gotta recommend you some good indie stuff then. I've discovered so much good stuff in the recent years. I used to be part of the big two, you know, the Marvel camp, the DC camp, and then it's like, wait, there's a whole other world of actual good stories that don't constantly have reboots and retcons.
I was there first because I was never a fan of Marvel or DC growing up. I enjoyed comics, but most of the comics I read were either graphic novels made by individual artists, manga of course, and surprisingly a lot of Star Wars comics.
That was probably one of the few times they actually there was an ongoing continuity, and it was ongoing continuity between media, because basically everything was kind of canon. Like, stuff that happened in video games was canon. Stuff that happened in comics or novels.
Until Disney ruined it all by saying, no, this is not canon.
Yeah,
right.
Then Disney came along and it's like, start over again.
I am not opposed to that. Honestly, I'll be honest, I don't care about Star Wars all that much. But I am interested in the direction that they are taking with The Last Jedi. So I could not care less about Star Wars fans thinking that they are ruining their childhood.
How bad was your childhood that a Star Wars movie is what, like, upheavals it all?
I don't even want to address all the roaring about Thundercats Roar, see what I did there, or the She-Ra non-controversy. I do not care.
With it.
I do not care. Actually, I want to point out something. Every time there is a reboot of a cartoon or any nostalgia property and whatnot, there is always that wing of fanatics who would come out of the basement. The SJWs ruined my childhood, or whatever nonsense of that sort. They did. Let me finish. They did that with She-Ra. They did it with Thundercats Roar. They even coined the CalArt style stigma, which personally makes me hurl. And yet, I did not hear a single peep about Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Everyone seems to be okay with it existing, which baffles me, because I am so used to see backlash over everything that the absence of backlash takes me aback. It's refreshing, but also scary at the same time. And, you know, I've seen a couple of episodes of Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I love it.
Yeah.
It's a full-on action comedy that tweaks the personalities of the Turtles just enough that they legitimately feel like different interpretations of them. I enjoy the aesthetic. There is more action, sheer, unbridled, spectacularly animated action in one episode of this show than in all iterations of the Turtles combined. I am not even exaggerating there.
It's not for me.
Okay, fair enough. But that's not the point. But that's not the point. The point I was trying to make is that it baffles me that there is no angry, irrationally angry reaction to it. For example, April O'Neil now is black, so I was expecting some sexist, racist jerkbag to come out and said, SJWs!
I did say on her video, I said, I don't really care if they made her black. They could have just created a new character. And one commenter just said to me, well, that's because you're a racist. And it's like,
no, you're sexist and racist.
I didn't say make her a boy.
Speaking of new characters,
I don't understand why they just didn't give her a new friend. Like, the Turtles can have other friends. They don't need to just hang out with April O'Neil. You could give them other friends.
Look, speaking
That's
of
the whole
other
point of creating a
characters,
mythos.
I really like the fact that they are using a new gallery of rogues for this show. No Shredder in the sight, no other familiar faces. We have new villains, and I'm all for that. Honestly, they've just ended the previous 2012 iteration of the Turtles, the one that I watched for one season, then I grew bored of it and I stopped watching entirely. This one excites me. I have legitimate fun with this new show. I like the intro, I like the animation overall, I like the modern, hyper-stylized aesthetics.
That's Teen Titans Go.
No, comparing Teen Titans Go with the rise of TMNT is like comparing Ducktales, the original Ducktales, with Quackpack.
Oh, I liked Quackpack. Sure, it was drenched in the 90s, but still.
Listen, there is an abyssal level of quality between the two shows in terms of animation budget alone. I will not hear any of that. I understand that the premise is similar because Teen Titans Go is basically the original Teen Titans, but without the serious bits, just the silly parts amped up to 11.
And almost none of their villains.
Without them being really heroes.
I don't care. I mean, the original Teen Titans was overrated anyway, so...
People look at the original Teen Titans and they remember all the nice drama stuff, but they forget how kind of stupid the show was at times.
It was corny and cheesy.
There are episodes where a British supervillain called the Mad Mod, voiced by Alex DeLarge from Clockwork Orange, comes in and his whole plan is to make everything British.
I like that episode, actually.
They're great. No, they're great. The Mad Mod episodes are some of the funniest ones. But I think people need to realize Teen Titans wasn't some kind of strange magnum opus of brilliance. It's the same thing like Batman the Animated Series. There's plenty of good episodes in Batman the Animated Series, like Heart of Ice with Mr. Freeze.
Right.
Great story. There's also an episode where the Joker's whole plan was to hit Batman in the face with the pie on Christmas. And don't get me wrong, Joker's hilarious in there, but let's be honest. We can't look at that show where it's like every episode was the magnum opus of writing. Joker's plan was literally, I'm going to give Batman a present, and then when he opens the box, pie to the face. that was it. That was the ace in the hole.
So when it comes to the properties, the IPs we grew up, we have this insufferable rose-tinted glasses clouding our vision.
Entitlement.
And causing entitlement and all that.
So, I like this thing. That means you have to listen to me.
Look, believe it or not. Believe it or
not. I like it. It's mine.
No, it's mine. Give me that.
Like I said.
Actual reenactment.
I am going to share something with you. I was almost like that with the new Ducktales. The new Ducktales is fine.
I could even partially debate that.
Yeah.
Okay, it has problems. For example, they have advertised Donald Duck as a main character. He's barely in the show.
Scrooge McDuck is barely in the show.
Scrooge is there enough. I've seen enough episodes. I think the best part of the new DuckTales is everything having to do with Magica the Spell and Lena, especially in later episodes. The problem with DuckTales is the same problem that, say, plagues other Disney Channel shows like Star vs. the Forces of Evil. We have one episode that further a plotline along and a million others of filler, and we wouldn't feel like they are fillers if they didn't air the episodes out of order and put the beginning of storylines at the beginning of the season and then forgot about them for several episodes and then casually come back to it, which is infuriating.
I think the thing is with Star that gives it a mild advantage, and it's very, very, very mild. Star versus their 11-minute episodes. So if there's a filler one, it's like, oh, here's a story one, there's a filler one. But DuckTales, they're 22-minute episodes. So when they do a filler episode, it's just like any story we had and all this momentum we were getting just went, and just stopped. Yeah. Like that Gizmo Duck episode. It's like everything just stopped to introduce, here's Gizmo Duck. Are we like doing a backdoor pilot for the character? Why are we doing this?
I was quite hurt that they teased a Darkwing Duck show, but then I found out it was a show within the show, instead of a story happening in the same shared universe like it was originally. But that's just the nostalgic fanboy in me talking, that I have to distance myself. You know what? The new DuckTales is fine. I have some gripes with it. It's not bad. It has its highs and lows, but for the most part, this was not made for me. This was made for a new generation of kids that would grow up with it. I have my own DuckTales. Back in the day, I grew up with it. Now this is the new DuckTales, which is not made for me. I do not own it because I'm a fan. Bleh. Imagine that.
When I see DuckTales, the original, and DuckTales, the newest one, I see two different iterations, alternate realities of DuckTales, if you will. I judge them both on their own separate pedestals, rather than compare the two, if that makes any sense.
I don't care about comparing them. I just accept it.
I know, but
it's like comparing apples and oranges. Yes.
But that's what I'm telling you. Comparing a new show to how it used to be in the olden days, like with DuckTales, it's
with penicillin and all those other things we had.
Let me get the leeches out.
Yeah, let me get the leeches.
It basically dilutes the not the improvements. It dilutes whatever merits the actual show is going for right now, rather than being held back by an anchor of the old one, if that makes any sense.
And this is the thing. This is actually a show I'm a huge defender of, that I hear a lot of people harp on. I love the new Justice League Action animated series they released, and I hear so much criticism where the argument is, oh, it's not like the Bruce Timm show, and it's like nobody realizes it's not trying to be the Bruce Timm cartoon you had. It's not trying to be story-driven. It's trying to be an action comedy of the DC universe, and that's all it wants to be.
Exactly.
And it'd be like if I came up to either one of you and was like, here's apple juice. You drink it and you go, oh, I was expecting it to taste like orange juice. Well, I don't know why you would. When it comes to like Justice League Action, a lot of people are under the assumption where it's like, oh, it's because it's called Justice League. Everyone's like, you're replacing the Bruce Timm cartoon. First off, that cartoon's been over for years. So this weird notion that it's canceling it, it's gone. It's been gone for years. And you need to let go of the fact that that Justice League cartoon had its run. It's not going to magically come back, and you're magically going to get the same thing.
Yeah.
You have to accept this is the new. I was the same way. When Batman Brave and the Bold happened, I hated it. I was like, this is what you did to Batman. You made him a joke. And then I started watching it. It's one of the best cartoons I've ever seen. I honestly think it's a better Batman cartoon than Bruce Timm's.
I actually like
I like that version of Batman because it's a proper Silver Age Batman, somewhere in between Adam West and Bruce Timm's Batman.
Well, yeah, I like that. I actually liked that Batman instantly when I saw it. I didn't care if it was serious or not. I just liked it.
It was the Batman of
strengths.
constant one-liners. I approve of it.
But like it's its own Batman. I could appreciate that. It's like
I
different
think
ice cream
actually
flavors.
I prefer Justice League Action over Batman the Brave and the Bold for one simple reason. In that we see more different team-ups instead of just Batman teaming up with everyone, which is kind of boring to me after a while.
So this is why I'm going to say this to anyone's watching this. If you think your favorite show is being ruined, because, of a new direction it's trying to go for, then maybe dial it back a bit and look at it from a different perspective, that it's a different flavor of what you used to know. Maybe you might like it if you gave it a shot. And if you don't like it, then, you still have the old one at least to remember.
Yes.
It's not like it's being burned to the stake like a witch.
No. If anything, it will be remembered even more fondly by your generation because of that. But you know what? Generation Xers really have a problem with understanding that content in general, media, are not being made for them, for their eyes only. And they still cannot wrap their heads around the fact that millennials are the new generation that's being catered on. And beyond millennials, the even newer generation, which I don't know what's it called now, but the point is, you're getting old. And now you're starting to become a baby boomer. Congratulations on your failure, you miserable human swine.
Well,
of course, not all of them, but you know of whom I'm talking about specifically.
Oh yeah, and that's why I'm disappointed in. I 100% understand the Thundercats roar backlash, and I get it. A lot of people love the '80s show.
Allow me to roll my eyes.
A lot of people like the original show. and we'll leave that at that. And
Yeah, okay.
A lot of people like the 2011 show that some people felt kind of got robbed by the network. I do agree to some extent. CN could have done a better job promoting it, but at the same time, I argue that I watched the 2011 show. It was very slow paced, and it spent too much time doing like weird nostalgic stuff. Do you remember these and this and this? And it's like
I don't care.
I remember it, but this is new. This is supposed to be new.
So, White Boy, do you have anything to say in this entire podcast? Because you've been drowned by everyone else here.
Basically, that's everything Nero's saying. It's just basically been my sort of thoughts. Like in terms of the Bruce Timm Justice League Action thing, I do like Justice League Action a lot, even more than Batman Burning the Bull, because I was of that sort of mindset of just like, goofy Batman, get that crap out of here. I don't want that crap.
And then you realize how great Goofy Batman is. Like, you realize how great Goofy Batman is. Oh, Neil Patrick
Speaking of
Harris is an
Goofy,
angel.
speaking of Goofy, how good are the Paul Ruddish's Mickey Mouse shorts?
Yeah, I love them. I love them.
I'm so disappointed that now if I need to get a Looney Tune fix, I have to go over to Disney and watch Mickey Mouse instead of being able to have good Looney Tunes over at Warner Brothers.
Wabbit sucks. Wabbit sucks so hard.
Dude, here's the thing. I love the Looney Tunes show, and then it got prematurely canceled, and I got really upset. But it's like, we're going to do Wabbit, and I'm like, okay, you want to go back to it being like, vignette shorts? Awesome, let's do this. And then it's like, oh, Bugs Bunny looks great. He looks on model. Here's his new best friend, a squirrel. Okay.
There's his new villain. You don't recognize him.
Okay.
There are tons of Looney Tunes. Why do we have to create a new one?
Listen, I'm going to say this about Wabbit. I hated that show as soon as I laid my eyes on it. There was something about the way it looked that rubbed me the wrongest way possible. It seems like a minor nitpick. But if you focus about it, you see whenever Bugs Bunny smiles, he has these triangles here at the edges of his mouth. I don't know why. That drives me insane. I cannot look at it without wanting to kill somebody. And what did they do to Yosemite Sam?
Bugs Bunny still looks like Bugs Bunny. It's a little tweaked for the new art style. Okay. But at the end of the day, it looks like Bugs Bunny. The moment Sam showed up, and I was like, well, who's that supposed to be? And like he's talking, I'm like, well, that sounds like Maurice LaMarche doing the Yosemite Sam voice. And then they call him Yosemite Sam, and I'm just like...
Also, can you explain to me why, in this new format of Looney Tunes shorts, there is still no Elmer Fudd?
That's weird.
It's funny. In the Looney Tunes show, I get it, because his whole gimmick in the original, dating all the way back, he was a hunter who hunted the bunny and the duck. You can't really have him do that when they're in suburbia. Otherwise, then he looks like a crazy shooter.
I would like that. I would like that version of the Elmer Fudd from the Batman crossover. Yes, bring him back. Animate that.
I wish DC would animate the
sandwich.
I wish that DC would animate the Looney Tunes DC crossovers, because despite all logic, again, this ties back into the last segment we were talking about, where it's like, you hear an idea, and it sounds dumb, and then you see it, and you're like, it really, like, okay, get this.
Changes my life.
Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
Jonah Hex is a scarred bounty hunter cowboy that has him teaming up with Foghorn Leghorn and Yosemite Sam.
Listen, I remember when I first heard about the crossover between Batman and Elmer Fudd, and I lost my mind.
I loved it. It was such a good story. Yeah. It was actually a genuinely heartfelt, interesting look at Elmer Fudd, and he was actually he was genuinely dangerous to even Batman. Like Batman was sneaking behind him, and he just flips his shotgun and almost shoots his head off.
Oh yeah.
And then all the other crossovers shouldn't work, and they're brilliant. Wonder Woman and the Tasmanian Devil is one of the most heartfelt, heartwarming stories I've read. One of the most brilliant ones that made perfect sense. Wile E. Coyote hires Lobo to get the Roadrunner.
And then, of course, the most obvious one is the Martian Manhunter with Marvin the Martian.
Yeah, Martian Manhunter and Marvin the Martian. And then they're doing a bunch more now. So they're going to have Deathstroke is fighting Yogi Bear. And Yogi Bear's like this big, ferocious grizzly. The Flash got in a race with Speed Buggy.
Oh, no.
Hong Kong Fooey's teaming up with Black Lightning.
Oh no!
It's so ridiculous, and they shouldn't work, but they're brilliant, and they actually work really well with each other. And I can't even explain like logic and reasoning as to why they work.
It's never about the strength or weakness of a given premise. It's about how willing you are to take the premise all the way to the finish line. And not many people are willing to do so because there are risks involved, or they lack the creativity, or they want to play it safe. And in my experience as a film critic, the more a premise is ambitious, the more a premise seems insanely out there, the less successful it is if you don't embrace the insanity, if you don't embrace the ambition and bring it where it needs to go.
That reminds.
This is why I enjoy the Guardians of the Galaxy films, for example.
Yeah, that's why I think Taika Waititi was so great on Thor Ragnarok, because the first Thor movies, they're not bad movies. They're only bad if you think about who Thor is. He's this larger-than-life figure. He's a god.
Yeah.
And as such, everything that surrounds him should be grandiose and massive. But you watch those movies, they don't want him to be the god of thunder. They want to dial it back. They want to keep him down here when Thor needs to be up here. You get to Taika's, that opening act alone. He's in the fire realm of Muspelheim, and he's meeting the fire giant Surtur, and he fights an army of fire demons, and he fights a giant dragon. One of the best ways he beats the dragon is when it comes at him, he drops his hammer in the dragon's mouth, and the dragon just gets pinned to the ground because the dragon can't lift the hammer. Yeah. So it's this poor lizard flopping around in desperation trying to lift up its own head, and it can't. And then Thor just starts running away, and he just goes, Heimdall! Open the Bifrost! And he like holds out his hand to summon his hammer, and he's like, gotta fly!
Right, so before Nero starts recapping the entirety of Thor Ragnarok, I think we should actually finally try to slowly get towards the approximate destination that this podcast was supposed to get into. About an hour ago, in fact. I cannot believe how long this podcast is going to be. Thanks a bunch, Nero, by the way. Usually these are
you've never
an hour long.
With me.
And now I have. Okay, great.
Yay.
So, Y-Boy almost didn't say a single word tonight.
What could I say anything when everyone else was saying the points I was going to say?
I thought you knew how to turn him off. I thought you knew he had a switch.
Well, I got turned off and all my words went into him.
One.
To conclude, some semblance of a previous argument I've initiated. Dear God, this was complete chaos.
Yes.
Reboots are usually not meant for you. Reboots are meant for new audiences. And they are usually made by the people who actually grew up watching the originals, the same you grew up with, and they want to present them to newer generations to keep the properties alive. Otherwise, they might get forgotten as time goes on. Not Disney characters, clearly, but think about any of the Terrytoons lineup. Do you remember any of them?
I want
Case in point.
To have a reboot.
Case in point.
I think Freakazoid deserves a reboot.
Things need to be rebooted periodically, otherwise you might forget that they've ever existed.
Like She-Ra. She had one show in 1985, and then it's like, 1985, nobody really talked about the show much. It's like, some 20-odd years later, they do the reboot. I can't believe they ruined She-Ra. For real?
I tried so hard not to even approach that. I really don't want to talk about that. Instead, let's finally get to talk about the topic, the one topic we are here all to discuss tonight, which is the Three Caballeros! So, 2018 has been a pretty weird year so far. You might agree with that. Butch Hartman turned out to be a Christian con artist. Image Comics published a story about a furry trans girl who works as a prostitute in Seattle.
Is it good?
Yes.
Okay.
And now here we are with the, speaking of reboots, actually this is a perfect segue because this is the most unexpected, unusual, and surprisingly needed reboot that I've ever come across. The Three Caballeros. The first time I heard that there was going to be a show named The Legend of the Three Caballeros, which was made for a Philippine audience, of all audiences, how weird is that? I did not know how to react, because I remember the original Caballeros, the original film in which all the Three Caballeros were featured. It's a big, huge part of my childhood, a gigantic item of nostalgia, but it wasn't really all that good. And yet, I was absolutely electrified when I gotten to watch these shows.
Who would have guessed we'd want to see Disney characters actually get shows, as opposed to, like, every year they create some new property. Like, every year they're like, here's our new movie. How about an animated feature film about, like, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Goofy? Nope, here's an all-new property. Why? You have this rich tapestry of characters that
Nero, I would urge you to contextualize that rant, because having new property is never a bad thing.
No, it's not. My criticism about that is that they have so many rich characters people adore, and they don't do enough with them. And it's a shame, because...
Okay, well, Nero, like, your wish is granted. We're getting a Frozen sequel. Aren't you happy?
No.
Before we talk properly about the show and what the premise is and what characters may or may not be featured for my dorky pleasure...
Yes.
Devar will take the stage to give us a bit of history and background on the hot Disney property. So, Devar, if you please.
I know that a lot of you in the audience at home are probably wondering, who the heck are the Three Caballeros, essentially? It's quite an old property, so to speak, to be bringing back, so not a lot of people would know, especially two particular characters.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I actually did my research and actually went back and checked out the originals of the shows they come from, well, the movies they come from, and found out some very interesting things. And I actually noted most of the interesting parts, both about the development and essentially of what went into these films, and about some interesting tidbits about both films that basically these characters come from. I'm talking about the first one, which was called Saludos Amigos.
Saludos Amigos.
Yeah, Saludos Amigos.
You said salad amigos.
I'm pretty sure I did not say that, but okay.
Friends of salads.
And of course, the Three Caballeros. Sadly, in order to talk about the Three Caballeros, you have to talk about Saludos Amigos. It's very interesting because both of these movies essentially are glorified travel agent brochures, essentially.
They are.
Of
yes.
South America, to be exact. But there's a reason why they were made this way, and I'm about to go into it. Saludos Amigos, greetings friend in Spanish, was the sixth Disney animated feature film and was first shown in Rio de Janeiro on August 24th of 1942 and released in the US a year after in 1943. And
hey, just like the Woody Woodpecker film.
And
another classic.
And it is also considered the shortest film to date by 42 minutes or so. At the time, the world was embroiled in the Second World War, and several Latin American countries had close ties to the Nazi Germany regime. Mm-hmm. So, to hopefully counteract those ties, Walt Disney was made into the goodwill ambassador, using the popularity of his property and animated characters in hopes that it would improve relations, as Mickey and the other Disney characters were really popular in South America. The production of this film was marred with problems from the get-go, though, as the Disney studio had overexpanded just before the European markets was closed to them due to the war. Several of their staff were drafted to the war as well, and the Disney animators' labor strike was taking place during that time.
Yes, one of the things that Disney does not like you to remember happened.
Yes. So,
Oh yeah, he hates unions.
So, plus, with only the funding from the film coming from the US government, it kind of left Walt Disney with little resources to work with. So, instead of a film with an overarching narrative, they had to make several small animated segments and bridge the gap between the shorts.
With a ton of stock footage.
Yes, live-action documentary of their goodwill trip to the South Americas, which is interesting in itself as these segments showed what inspirations the cartoonists took from the towns and cities of Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and Chile. They visited along with a small,
Chile?
Yeah, they visited along with a small real-life appearance by Walt Disney himself.
Don't you mean Chile?
Saludos Amigos, upon its release, soon became quite popular, that it made the existence of the Three Caballeros possible 2 years later, and even was nominated for several awards, mostly involving Best Musical Score, Song and Sound Recordings mainly, though. Though, interestingly, upon its release in the US, the film changed the US citizens' perception of South America to a more positive light, which...
Imagine that.
Yeah, which has been noted by a film historian by the name of Alfred Charles Richard Jr., who stated that Saludos Amigos did more to cement a community of interest between people of the Americas in a few months than the State Department had in 50 years.
That is really interesting.
Yes.
Also, has any of you ever seen Saludos Amigos, by the way?
I saw it when I was very
Maybe when I was a kid. It's
Yeah,
been.
me too.
I used to
It's been a
have
long
the
time.
VHS tape of that, actually.
I saw it last week.
Yes, you are late to the party.
Yes. Though, let's not talk about the people of Chile. They weren't too happy with one segment of the film, which caused a cartoonist by the name of Rene Rios Botitega. He perceived one of their segments to be insulting to their country because Pedro was considered weak and such. But then again, the concept was originally meant to be for an Irish plane called P.T. O'Toole. So also the perceived slight did give us the popular Latin American comic series Condorito. So win-win. Okay, so I'm going to actually introduce to you now one particular character who appears in the movie, very late, my ad, called Jose Carioca, or Joe Carioca, as the film accidentally calls him by.
Oh God! Are you
Well,
serious?
they corrected it. They corrected it pretty
They
soon.
corrected it in the sequel, thankfully. The character was conceptualized from a Brazilian parrot Walt Disney himself caught sight of by the name of Sonia, I believe. And the character's design and personality was meant to represent the country of Brazil as a means to complement the film to enforce Brazil's continued cooperation with the US under the good neighbor policy.
Yes, Carioca is a suave, well-dressed character with a fancy Cuban cigar, an umbrella.
He's a
and all
generic Latin lover. He's like the guy that came out of those soap operas.
Yes, and he loves his telenovelas.
that. You
No, he
know,
loves his freaking telenovelas, right?
okay, for
Yes.
the 1940s, that was probably the most respectful portrayal of ethnicity that's ever been
Yes,
done
yes.
by that point.
That's probably the least offensive we could have gone.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, baby steps. Baby
Hey, man.
steps.
Yes. So yeah,
I'd appreciate
despite only appearing in the film 10 minutes of the final segment of the film, Carioca returned in the Three Caballeros as stated before, but over the years has appeared in Disney animated shorts, Two Happy Amigos, Carnival Time, and Melody Time's Blame It on the Samba segment, which he
And-
starred alongside Donald Duck.
Yes, and Carioca also briefly returned for the Mickey Mouse works in the mid-2000s, And
Oh,
he
yeah.
was featured prominently in the Italian Disney comics. I particularly remember a story starring him that spanned through various issues in which
Yeah.
he goes around the world finding about his various relatives and cousins,
Yeah.
which they all turn out to be a protected species.
He even had a small and brief cameo appearance in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Ooh,
Everybody
that's an
did.
obscure one.
Carnival Time is sadly the only one of the three I've not experienced myself, but from what I researched, it was a lesson of culture about the annual celebration Carnival in Rio de Janeiro, which was hosted by Ludwig von Drake, a literal bird brain of a professor.
Ah, yes, Ludwig van Drake. We should have probably led this by saying that Saludos Amigos technically stars Donald Duck,
Yes,
although it has a
does.
series of anthology stories.
Yes,
But yes,
it also-
Donald
it
Duck
also
is
stars-
one of the Three Caballeros, by the way, so in case
Yes.
that was not known.
And also, it's funny because Goofy was also in the movie as well, Saludos Amigos, so...
There was a short about an airplane that gets lost in a scary storm, and that has remained with me for a long time.
Yeah, that was the one that Chile was quite insulted by.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so now that that's sort of with karaoke been introduced and Saludos Amigos, we move on to the Three Caballeros proper. There's not much information, that's because it's mostly a holdover from Saludos Amigos. The Three Caballeros premiered in Mexico City on December 21st, 1944.
That makes sense.
But was released to the US in just 3 months in 1945. Not only was it the 7th Disney animated feature, but it was also considered the first canonical sequel to a Disney film at the time.
Okay, sure.
It counts, but the film was created once again as a goodwill message to South America, but unlike its previous outing, the film uses Donald Duck's birthday as a narrative crutch to string together small animated segments in order to make an overarching plot of sorts in the form of Donald opening gifts from his Latin American friends.
All of Latin America is friends with Donald
Yeah.
Duck.
Yeah.
The film is also notable, by the way, to being the first feature-length film to mix live action with animated characters, and hasn't been attempted since the 1920s Alice comedies.
Hey, where does Song of the South figure in all of this?
The movie also starred many live actors who were famous Latin American stars at the time. These included singers Aurora Miranda, sister of Carmen Miranda, and Dora Luz, as well as dancer Carmen Molina.
Okay, so refresh my memory. Was Lady Miranda the one featured in the karaoke segment? The one in which they go to the beautiful city of Bahia?
Yes, I believe Aurora Miranda was the woman who was...
Have you guys ever been to Bahia?
Have you ever been to Bahia?
You've never been to Bahia? Oh, Bahia!
It sings a song in my heart.
Inside jokes between the two of us that you cannot get.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so in this movie, we are introduced to the third and final of the Three Caballeros.
In the third part of the film, actually.
Yes, it is actually. At least it's more screen time than Jose got. We have to talk about Panchito.
Ah, Panchito.
Or rather, Panchito Romero Miguel Yume Francisco Quintero Gonzalez III, but his friends call him just Panchito.
Okay.
He was created to represent the Mexican and Spanish region of South America.
That is probably the most respectful portrayal of Mexican culture America has ever put out.
Oh, what about Slowpoke Rodriguez?
Rodriguez.
No love for Slowpoke Rodriguez? That hard mouse?
Hey, I'll let you know. Slowpoke Rodriguez is my boy, okay? We hang out all the time.
Hola.
Okay.
I am Slowpoke Rodriguez.
Okay.
And he slinks away to go sleep.
Okay, so he has only made appearances alongside Donald and Karaoke in the Three Caballeros group within cameo appearances and comic books. as he did not fare well as a solo star out of
I
the
wonder
three.
why.
Though he did serve as a minor military mascot, as his likeness was used to represent the 201st Mexican Fighter Airplane Squadron that served to assist the American forces in the recapture of the Philippines. And his likeness was also painted on the nose of the North American B-25 Mitchell planes, to all you plane nerds out there.
I think you just found the missing link between the Caballeros and the Philippines.
While the originals were taken out of commission in 1949, a replica of the plane with Panchito's image was recreated, which is in the civilian service and appears in air shows to this day, apparently. So,
Fascinating.
So Disney will put their characters on bombers, but they won't let the characters be in children's hospitals, and they'll forever stay.
Hey, yeah.
Okay.
So both of these characters together have made cameo appearances in shows like House of Mouse and recently culturally relevant episodes in the Mickey Mouse shorts, and even a confirmed appearance in the upcoming season 2 of the recent incarnation of Ducktales, and even their own line of comic books within their country of origin.
That is so interesting. I cannot stress enough how interesting it is.
Yes.
For us, animation historians, at least.
Yes. Founded the English voice actors in the Three Caballeros, Clarence Nash, Jose Oliveira, and Joaquin Garay, I don't know if I'm saying that name right, who voiced Donald, Carioca, and Panchito respectively, all had their roles in not only in English, but also Spanish and Portuguese version of the film, apparently, from what I've found out from my Mexican source.
He has a Mexican source, guys! The story
Yes.
thickens.
Yes, my ex-boyfriend told me this information.
He's not actually his ex-boyfriend. Okay, the bar is straight.
Oh no, I'm dead serious.
That's a part of you I was not wary of.
Well, I don't exactly advertise it.
This podcast is full of intrigue, revelations, and plot twists. Wow! This is just like one of my Spanish telenovelas.
Yes. So yeah, that's all the information I wrote down, essentially. That is trivia, basically what went into the films, and basically what happened afterwards until the legend of the Three Caballeros came to being.
Say, what about the classic Caballeros little tune?
Oh yes, the little tune that they sing. Panchito sings a particular song. It is actually an adaptation of the popular song. I'm sorry if I butcher this, so please don't kill me, my ex-sweetie. Jalis Cornoterias.
Nailed it.
But it was a song by the late Manuel Espiron, who died in 2011. And Panchito even sings some of the original version of this song in the original language of Spanish. Interestingly, Carioca actually has the same treatment done to when he sings the song of Bahia, which was an adaptation of Na Bahia de Zapatero by Ari Barroso.
Bahia, land of enchantment.
Yeah, so essentially I have told you everything that you need to know.
And that same tune is used as a base for the new theme song for the new Caballeros show.
Yes, with the only change being to one particular lyric of, instead of singing "We're three caballeros, three gay caballeros," they say "We're three caballeros, three brave caballeros." Back then, gay meant happy.
And happy. I learned that a random way when I was watching a cartoon and Goofy showed up and he goes, "I feel so gay today." And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, oh.
So let me put this straight, Disney. You essentially rebooted what essentially was a over-glorified holiday brochure / travel agents for beautiful Bahia, wonderful Brazil.
Imagine this, guys. There was a time in which America loved Mexico.
It's impossible. Okay, They're full of rapists and murderers.
Oh god, no.
Let's not start this
Bad
again.
Nero. Bad Nero. Bad. This is a safe space.
Yes, yes, hit him
Quit
with the
whipping me
banana.
with your banana.
Yeah,
Banana.
so-
Quit whipping me
Oh,
with
yes.
your huge banana, sir.
So, yes,
Let's
as
talk
I said-
about Legend of the Three Caballeros
Yes,
already.
I'm going to get to that. I was going to say, you've basically taken this over-glorified brochure to beautiful Bahia, wonderful, gorgeous Acapulco in Mexico, and turned it into Legend of the Three Caballeros, which is a globe-trotting, globe-porting adventure with magic and...
Various interesting liberal interpretations of various cultures and mythologies.
yes, and myths and legends and such. Okay,
This
I'm
is the weirdest reboot I've ever seen, and I love it.
Yes, yes. I actually like this reboot as well myself. I liked the original for what they were, because essentially they were like filler, artsy, goodwill messages about, hey, this is a lovely place you might want to consider being nice to, because they've got really nice people and not peasants like you think they are.
Yes, also they are our friends, and Nazis are our enemies, which is another concept that completely escapes me today.
Yes,
Man, my country's teaching me all the opposites about what's happening right now. This is
America, we really need to get back Roosevelt from the dead. You know, have him take charge. You know, goodwill messages, all that is good.
And also, Devar, most importantly, confidence!
Yeah.
Remember
Yes,
that?
confidence. Yes, confidence. That's all you need in life. You don't
Yes.
need to know how to use a sword.
We'll use it to defeat depression, all of it.
Okay, so now that we've said that, we should talk about the Legend of the Three Caballeros proper.
We are the Caballeros, the Three Caballeros.
Yeah,
Together we're birds of a feather.
Yeah, it's a very addictive theme song as soon as you hear it, in the second episode anyway.
Is it? It
Now,
is.
I'm going to say this instantly. I enjoy and like the references to the original that the series does constantly. Like, for example, the first episode with Donald Duck, where it starts him off, it's basically his birthday, much like in the same way the Three Caballeros started. And always, so during this series, as it goes on, you always see these little details, these little bits of animation references to the original as well. Like how to grow bigger, for example.
I'll tell you what I enjoyed about this show. To be frank, this is not the best cartoon I've ever seen. It
No.
doesn't have the best or most clever writing. It
No.
doesn't have the funniest joke or the funniest action set pieces. And the animation is also on the lower end of the spectrum. It looks like it's been made in Adobe Flash, in fact, most of the times. But all of that doesn't even come close to compare to the sheer notion that this show exists in the first place. And I, as an animation scholar, as a huge nerd, am so delighted at the prospect that somebody, a group of people, had to have come together, had to come up with the idea of, hey, let's reboot the Three Caballeros. And also, let's bring back all of these incredibly obscure characters that nobody knows or remembers of and give them life anew. Essentially, this show was made by the biggest Disney nerds who ever lived. And that gives it so much charm. My review of this show is just going to be me listing to you all the obscure Disney characters I've spotted.
Yes, same here, actually.
Episode 1 already gives us Panchito and Carioca, which I'm already happy to see them. And then the Araquian bird, which was Disney's original answer to Woody Woodpecker back in the 40s, and debuted in a Donald Duck short, also in that time. And he was in the Three Caballeros, also.
Yeah.
He's there. That makes sense, and I am so happy to see him! You wouldn't believe it! And they use him scarcely, so it doesn't get too annoying.
Pretty much
That was just the beginning.
Yes, that was just the beginning. That was not the tip of the. That was just the tip of the
Because
iceberg.
in the same episode, to my utter shock and surprise, Daisy's nieces show up. April, May, and June. These characters...
I hate them.
Look, I don't care if you hate them. These characters... Sorry, it sounded mean. These characters, they were from the comics, and they were incredibly obscure, even for the comics. I just love the idea that somebody in the team that made this show said, you know what? Donald's nephews are overexposed as they are. Let's bring another set of triplets. Everybody's going to be so surprised to see Daisy's nieces. Yes, she has nieces now. It's canon. Yes.
I'm only going to say this about the nieces. The nieces are fine for what they are, except for one bit of plot contrivance in one episode, which I don't know if we're going to cover or not, due to their existence in the show. And they're kind of like how the old Huey, Dewey, and Louie were like in the original DuckTales, except with subtleties, at least, added.
Characterization isn't the strongest suit of this show. I am looking with my two eyes at the biggest platform for obscure, forgotten Disney characters that there ever was. At some point, the Goblin Army from the Black Cauldron show up, and I am completely flabbergasted. Oh, and also remember King Arthur, which was a lion? That's not King Arthur, I call shenanigans. That's King Richard Lionheart from Robin Hood.
It looks similar, yes. Well, but slightly, you know, redundant.
More masculine.
And what about that episode that had Humphrey the Bear coming to life as a bear pelt?
Yeah, and then there's those two bees from the short as well.
Yes, from the short Bee on Guard. They are basically little clones of Spike the Bee, which is used to be a famous enemy of Donald Duck. And of course, you have Donald Duck's dashing doppelganger, Dapper Duck, which showed up for one episode in the 1940s as Donald's doppelganger.
I actually remembered him as well.
Showed up out of nowhere. My head exploded. I was so happy.
By Megatron.
Oh my god!
Of David K.
I remembered him as well because I remember the whole episode rolled around Donald hiring him to basically, you know, get Daisy all warmed up for him. But then he was like, betrayed him just because, sorry, sir, but I'm not going to pass up this beauty.
It's Dapper Duck! They brought back Dapper Duck! So many obscure characters!
He would have been doing Donald a favor.
Yeah. I'll tell you about my favorite episode in the show, which is also probably the most insane. It's the one in which they end up in hell. Which isn't just one version of hell, the biblical Dantesque hell. It's all the versions of hell, at least 3 versions of the underworld, more prominently. You have El Ultramundo from the Mexican tradition, Jigoku from the Japanese mythos. The entire plot of the episode is that the Caballeros have been sent to El Ultramundo by Death, Mexican Death, to be specific, because they ruined a wrestling match in the previous episode.
Is a luchador.
Yes, of course he is, because he's Mexican. And they have to reach the gateway, the exit, which is situated at the base of Mount Fuji, because Japan was shoehorned into what was the Mexican underworld. For some reason, I love it. And then they fight Tengu, the yokai, they get out of it, and at the end of it, it is revealed that the one running hell is Devil Donald Duck, which was Donald Duck's shoulder devil, also in a short from the 1940s. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, this show, like I said, it's a Disney dork's dream come true.
It's a treasure trove of classic, obscure characters that only the die-hard historic fans will probably get. Namely me and Madhog and a fair few others.
So yes, I enjoyed the Legend of the Three Caballeros pretty much for that reason alone. I did not care if it wasn't as good as it could have been in every other department. The very idea that it exists, and in 2018 I get to see Humphrey the Bear again?
Played by Jim Cummings.
Of course he is! All the bears are played by Jim Cummings. So, do you guys have anything to say, or should we end this podcast?
We both love the Three Caballeros so much. Like, we loved it. Like, we were watching Ducktales at the same time as Three Caballeros when it was coming out in the most legal way we could watch it. I'll just lay that slide out there. But we were just loving it so much because it basically had everything that we were sort of missing from Ducktales.
Do you remember they announced Ducktales and we were promised like fun action, adventure, going, exploring, and then you and I were like, and then it like never came, and it was like, oh, what the heck? And then out of nowhere, on an app, on an app in the Philippines, it was like,
pretty much.
And here you go. Doesn't Donald Duck already have a cartoon? Here's a better one.
Where he actually shows up as a main character.
I will say this, I was pretty disappointed that Donald Duck was not featured more prominently in the new DuckTales. But then this show came about, and this one particular itch in the back of my neck was able to get scratched. So I am good now.
Well, for White Boy, his favorite of the Walt Disney created characters is Donald Duck.
Yeah.
So for him, this was a godsend because he wants to see Donald as a lead. For me, I got my itch scratched in the first episode because they had Pete being an angry mom.
Yeah.
Because Pete's my favorite Disney character that Walt ever created. So it was great to hear Jim Cummings' voice coming out of a very angry, angry lady who looks just like Pete in drag. But even in terms of the shows, because we do like the new DuckTales, but too much of it really gets on our nerves with everything
or I would argue that too little of the good parts gets on somebody's nerve.
It's not even that. We're upset that Donald gets looked over, but we're pretty sick of Webigail. She's basically Mabel Pines from Gravity Falls in duck form.
Look, I once theorized that Webby was the Roman Reigns of the new DuckTales because she gets shoehorned and shoved into her face more than any other character, essentially. And I get it. There were not many prominent female characters in the original DuckTales or even in the original Uncle Scrooge comics by legendary Carl Barks. And I get why you would want to have one female character, that is, to be as prominent as possible. In that sense, I think Lena is a godsend, because she actually has an interesting arc going on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad somebody thought that. I would disagree. I thought it was very telegraphed.
Listen, it is extremely telegraphed, but I would argue that her interaction with Magica the Spell, especially in the more recent episodes, makes up for all the telegraphed story bits. I'm actually invested in that.
Magica is a wonderful villain. I've had this conversation with you where you and I have debated what makes a good villain. Is a good villain layered or charisma or just entertainment value?
Delivery.
And when it comes to Disney villains, it's all about personality.
Yeah.
Because even their movie villains, Yzma, Hades, Jafar, they're not layered or deep. But my God, can they grab your attention on screen?
They chew
and
the
that's
scenery.
When it comes to Magica the Spell, all pun intended, she's magical. She's so delightful to watch.
I'll give you a bit of interesting background about Magica the Spell. She debuted, of course, in a classic comic by Carl Barks. Legendary Italian actress Sophia Loren was the inspiration for Magica.
Hence the accent.
And her house is on the top of Mount Vesuvio. Because
of course it is. Why wouldn't?
Italian witch! Yay!
Yeah. Well, this is why I like Three Caballeros, is because Lord Feldrake and Shellgoose. God, these
Shellgoose, you nincompoop!
But between the two of them, and then what was the monkey rat donkey rat thing?
Leopold.
Between the three of them, it's it's simply magical. It's like watching a strange gay couple bicker, and it's so endearing.
Yeah, it's
Mom and Dad, don't fight!
I love that too. Like Leopold.
By the way, I should probably say that these three characters that we just mentioned just now are the villains of the piece.
Yes, of the Legend
And they're
of Three
wonderful.
Caballeros. I especially like the main villain's voice. He's always so angry!
Oh
Child goes you nincompoop! I'll bust you in the head!
I like his voice. He's still got that same tone, even when he's trying to be affectionate with Leopold. He goes like, Leopold!
Leopold, oh, you beautiful son of mine. Come here, Leopold. Child goes you nincompoop!
You have more grades than the nincompoop.
It's so funny that we have a villain that actually adores their henchmen. Because, like, most of the times the villains treat their henchmen bad. This is a villain who adores his henchmen.
Yeah, one henchman gets...
But Shell Goose is a screw-up, so, like, why would he treat him poorly?
Well, the thing is that Shell Goose may be a screw-up, but he is good with his words in selling things.
Yeah. And Dwayne, and how was it, Wayne Knight is so perfectly casted. It's just like when he played Emperor Zurg on Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. He's got such a charm where he's over the top, but he's also kind of debonair and suave. But he's also really pathetic and a butt monkey.
Yes, pretty much. That summarizes the character.
It's such a perfect blend. So you got one villain who's generally intimidating with Kevin Michael Richardson. You know, and who hasn't Kevin played? He's played the Shredder. He's played the Joker. Kevin's been around. Yeah. All right. He's pretty iconic.
Yeah.
You know, so you got Feldrake, who's got he's got the actual evil part down. He's actually intimidating. You got Wayne Knight on Shelled Goose, who's wonderfully camp and cheesy, and then Leopold's like this big, lovable, stupid pet played by T. Bradley Baker. Yeah. And he owns it.
Yeah, it's a perfect blend of all three of them to make a good antagonistic force for the Three Caballeros to face off against.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where they go with these characters.
Yes, because Season 1 actually ended on a cliffhanger, so we're probably going to get more if this is successful.
I would hope so, personally, because, you know, the show is entertaining despite its
shortcomings.
Yeah, and plus, I should probably explain one thing, that we have... The Three Caballeros, they are led by, Xandra, goddess of adventure. Which
is weirdly human.
I told you the entire time we were watching, I said, how come not one person has pointed out, like, what kind of animal are you? You don't look like anything else.
Oh, I get it. You're a shaved monkey.
So you think somebody would have said something like, are you some kind of, like, gorilla?
I can accept that gods in this universe are human and the common folk are animals. I guess it's a differentiation.
My internal logic is like, okay, so like Donald and their species, that's the commonplace. Bears, dogs, animals are the common species. Well, I guess a god wouldn't look like the species that worship them, so she'd look like something dramatically different. Which to us is like, well, she's just a chick.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, to animals, we'd be like, oh my god.
She's some kind of otherworldly being of unknown origin.
It's okay.
I can justify that with a nuanced argument, because if you look at the Egyptian gods, they are animals. They had the heads of animals. So maybe this is a reverse psychology in which if animals are the people, then maybe the gods, they look human. But then again, actually, that doesn't make sense for another reason, because the Egyptians have given their gods the appearances of animals that they were actually familiar with. There are no humans in this world aside from the gods, so the gods are aliens.
They're otherworldly life forms, and occasionally they turn out to be like a hot Greek woman played by Grey Griffin.
So essentially, the reason I bring up Xandra, the goddess of adventure.
Goddess of adventure.
By the way, I'm doing the pose as well while I'm doing this, so.
Yeah.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, and she knew the Three Caballeros, as in their ancestors, who will look like them. They fit
of course
armor and everything.
Hold on, I have a question. Why does Panchito's ancestor wears a Centurion armor.
Yes, I know.
Hold on a second, this is confusing. When did the original Caballeros leave? Because from the looks of it, they are from 3 completely different eras already.
Yeah. Well, who knows? But yeah, the whole reason of this is basically Xandra is basically goddess of adventure and basically is training the Three Caballeros to be the Three Caballeros again. And
Or the cabs.
Yeah, the cabs for short, as she puts it.
That's to be cool and hip with the kids.
And yet all I'm thinking is taxi driving because of that.
And
which they could also be.
And okay, so actually there's actually one detail I actually think is rather amusing slightly. Every time they end the episode, the next episode literally comes off literally after whatever happened last episode.
Yes, every episode offers a cliffhanger for the next episode, which...
It's like a movie. It's like a long film.
Actually, I don't think it works in this format, because every episode features a self-concluding narrative, but then it ends with a cliffhanger for the next episode, ends up feeling narratively contrived. Because, hey, when the bad guys are defeated by the end of one episode, they immediately come up with a new plan, so they go where they need to go, and the Caballeros just so happen to go there next in the following episode.
Because the map tells them.
No, sometimes they just go there because.
Yes, that too, but more often than not, it's the map that tells them. But yeah, the reason I bring this up because I find it funny that basically it feels like as if Donald, Jose, Carioca, and Panchito are not sleeping.
Yes, that's also another problem that this approach brings. What exactly is the time frame? How much time is passing between episode 1 and, say, episode 13? We don't know that because the show is going a million miles per hour with its pacing. So there isn't really much time for the Three Caballeros to properly get to know each other, because immediately they have to stop Feldrick and his scheme, which he comes up with instantly by the end of one episode, and it's the premise of the next episode. It doesn't quite work, this approach, for this particular show.
Yeah, it's a bit weird for my liking. Also, I really dislike the contrived nonsense of Donald was about to do the right thing, and everyone was like, no! And it's like, why not? You can't tell Daisy that you're one of the Three Caballeros and you're traveling the world in order to save the world, because you're going to put her in danger. And here's me looking at the three nieces like, okay.
Yeah, but no one cares if they die. They're useless.
Okay, so I'll be honest with you. I think Donald Duck would be much better off without Daisy, especially after this show.
Thank effing God. My God, what a toxic, disgusting relationship that is.
Yes, I agree. Donald Duck needs to dump Daisy and get together with his one true love, which is Kairi from Kingdom Hearts.
There you go.
Is there even like another Disney character that could be shipped with Donald? Like, okay, Goofy's got Clarabelle Cow.
Yeah.
Is there even like another character?
That female hen.
You're not wrong about Donald's infatuation with human characters, considering the original Three Caballeros.
You got a point there. Yes, he was just wolfing it out every time there was a sexy live-action Latino woman in the Three Caballeros.
Such definition.
Yeah, it's so weird, and yet for some reason this little detail is from the original. That is, it's become like an interesting talking point for many people.
Yes, well, you know, as soon as furries started to exist, they ruined everything.
Is that McDonald a human? He goes on like human affinity and he looks up pictures of humans.
I believe the term you're looking for is fleshy.
Yeah, fleshy. But yeah, so back to the Legend of Three Caballeros. I want to like this show, but at the same time, it's like I feel like there's some potential lost in the translation, so to speak. I mean, I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad that we have it the way it is, but here's me thinking, right, we have Ducktales for myths, legends, and treasures.
But it's failing.
Yeah, but the thing is, I can't help but think that the Three Caballeros could have been much better off with a more down-to-earth sort of thing, with less about magic and more to do with traveling the world in 8 days style.
That's literally the most boring part of the new DuckTales, is where it's like, let's not go on adventures. Like that terrible episode where it's like, the three brothers hating brothers.
I didn't say not go on adventures. I mean like a true globe-trotting experience where they go to a different country every episode and they have to solve something there. And
yes, and it would be nice if they didn't completely mangle whatever culture they come across, like they did in this first season. I have to say, some of the choices for cultural representation left me a bit bewildered.
Because when it comes to these cartoons, you should go for cultural accuracy, right?
I mean, why is Stonehenge a portal to the Black Cauldron universe?
It's all that fantastical idea that Stonehenge is a mythological gateway to something more.
Yeah.
Okay, why are all versions of hell mixed up into one? It's utterly confusing because we jumped from Mexico to Japan.
Have you been to hell? Can you disprove that all the hells don't coexist?
Can you disprove all the hells don't exist?
Maybe it's like Earth.
Listen. I've been to hell. It's called the waiting line at the post office.
That's what's confusing? Shelled Goose had 2 faces for butt cheeks in an episode, and that's the thing that's confusing to you? Is that there are multiple hells?
That's cartoon logic. I don't question it.
Multiple hells is cartoon logic.
Since when?
Because it's a cartoon!
Because it's multiple mythos.
Oh, you guys are killing my head!
I mean, if Xandra exists, right away, don't you think, wait, Xandra exists? That's like the Greek pantheon drill. Does Jesus exist? Is Jesus in the Three Caballeros and they just haven't met him yet? No, he'll be like...
Okay, so...
Oh, no, I guess he would be a duck because the Virgin Mary would be a duck. That like an angel came down and impregnated.
Listen, as a connoisseur of Norse mythology, I'm a bit miffed that they have completely dropped the ball on the Tree of Life.
Yeah.
Oh, I was annoyed about that because they go to Yggdrasil and it's like, here are the Roman gods. Oh, I really wanted Chris Hemsworth to show up in like full Thor regalia.
I would have liked the Norse gods appearing in a Norse mythology setting. Also, the Yggdrasil doesn't work like that. You can't just go to it because your world is on the branches of the Yggdrasil.
I'm sorry. Have you been to Yggdrasil? Can you disprove that its fruit aren't like planets?
Have you read the book? Damn you! Okay, you know what?
I've read book written by people who haven't actually gone to the place.
Yes, they had travel agency videos made by Disney in the 40s about the beautiful Yggdrasil.
God of War just came out.
I don't care about God of War.
Tree you can go to.
I don't care about the new God of War. I really don't care about the new God of War at all. I don't care about the camera being constantly stuck on Kratos' lower end for all of it. Because it's an artistic decision and choice. You know, like a long plane in a film. Pretentious garbage and all that. And, okay, you know what? I think we've said everything that needed to be said about Los Three Caballeros. It was fun. This podcast is over 2 hours long. It's going to be hell for me to edit. Yay. Thank you, Nero. It's all your fault, by the way. So
I'm not sorry.
What about me with my long historical rant?
What about me saying nothing?
Look, I actually wanted you to have your historical rant because I asked you to. So, White Boy, I leave you to your lover's quarrel. Figure out where his switch off button is, please.
Yeah.
And also,
get out of here.
Banana. I know. White Boy, I know. It's in the banana. He's off switching the banana.
Yeah. Yeah,
it is.
No, it's probably is crystal gem in the belly.
In your face.
All right then, thank you for joining us, everybody. We've been the Four Caballeros, apparently. Now, here comes the part of the show that's entirely dedicated to plugs. Not the ones you put in your body orifices, as you're plugging in all of our content. So, Toon Green Boys, get wild.
Let's see what they do.
So we know that end of this week we'll be going to Con Bravo. We hope to see
Yes.
anybody there.
Yeah.
We're going to be going there for 3 days. Our main YouTube channel is Toongrin.
YouTube.com/Toongrin/com. Because we don't have Toongrin anymore.
Because YouTube screwed us over. You could just go to our website, toongrin.com. That's where all of our content goes up anyways, and it's an easier way to stay focused.
And our next big video should be on watching stuff of Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Teen Titans Go on one hand, and on the other hand, fuck Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so Devar, do you have anything you want to plug in? Twitter, anything?
Well, you'll probably most likely will put my Twitter down on the video somewhere, I guess. But I'll try and get back to, somewhere in this video editing nonsense that I once called something I loved.
You can follow me on my Twitter at Adriano Bordoni1. You can choose to support me on Patreon, where I post all preview videos of everything I do. Well, the most important ones, like this podcast, which will take me approximately 12 years to edit. Go me. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Madhog Master, where you are watching the video right now. Click on the notification bell. Everything you need to do in order to enjoy some gosh darn YouTube content these days, before we're all wiped out by the threat of the week. Right, so again, thank you for joining us, everybody. This has been El Madhog.
I've been Devakron.
Yes, breaking up rather violently. Good stuff.
Yeah, I've been Devakron once again.
Again, 2 Devars tonight. And then we also had the Toon Green Boys.
Yeah, why boy?
And I am Nero.
Yeah.
Yes, those guys. And the banana, of course. Why, boy, don't hold the banana like that.
Oh, give it.
No, no.
Let me hold it.
No.
Let me hold it.
I am going to end this podcast now. Good night, everybody.
Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba.